Welcome back. This is not the first time I've uttered the words, the situation in Haiti is worsening. But it doesn't make it any less true. We are seeing a massive migration of Haitians trying to make it to Florida. This week I spoke to Jacqueline Charles from the Miami Herald. No one knows Haiti better than Jackie. She has been covering the island for many years, and when she says it's the worst she's seen in a long time, you better believe it.
Well, the current state of things in Haiti is just despair. I've been going to Haiti now for many years, probably the last 2 decades. And I have to tell you that I have never seen things this bad. When I've looked back to some of my stories, I see some of the quotes, repeating themselves from Haitians. Either you die here, or you die trying. That things are bad. But I have to tell you that today, with the situation, with the escalating gang violence, which is unprecedented in Haiti, um, also the kidnappings. All of this is leading to people having this sense of hopelessness. And this is, of course, on top of the fact that 45% of the population, this is a country of 12 million people, 45% of that population is looking at really deep hunger, increased rates of hunger.
Do you have a sense for the number of people who are leaving? Have the numbers dramatically increased in the past year? Talk to me about that.
Yes, we are currently in the largest exodus of Haitians by boat in 18 years. Since 2004, US Coast Guard has not seen these numbers. Right now, we are at more than 5,300 Haitians have been stopped at sea between the Florida Straits and the Mona Passage. Because in the Mona Passage, they're trying to get to Puerto Rico. Through the Florida Straits, they're trying to get to the Florida Keys. And we are at exactly 1,500 who have actually made land between the Florida Keys and, off of Puerto Rico or, mainland Puerto Rico. But there are countless who have died at sea that we really don't know. They're called invisible shipwrecks. So we're just giving you the numbers that US Coast Guard, that they've been able to count in these boats that are leaving, every week. It's on average about 4 boats that they are stopping a month that are leaving Haiti trying to get to the US.
And the only time we really see it, if you're non a Haitian, if you're in Miami, and you may see it on the news, is when a boat lands, for instance, as one did not long ago, right near the Ocean Reef Country Club, near Key Largo.
You mentioned that boat, 356 Haitians, and it was so dramatic because you literally saw people jumping into the oceans, just trying to get to land so they would not be returned back to Haiti. And then we just had a boat of 842 Haitians that got stopped in Cuba only because the engines started taking on water. But that boat was already out of Cuban waters and headed to the Florida Keys when they had to turn back because of the safety issue.
I've wait spoken say it again. How many people were on that boat?
842 Haitians were on a boat that recently left Ile de la Tortue, and it ran aground in Cuba only because it started taking on water. It had already left the Cuban waters and was coming toward the Florida Keys. And then the boat captain decided to turn back and go back into Cuban waters because he was afraid that the boat would basically sink.
So we're talking a lot about the migration by boat. But there's also another option that we're seeing more and more, which is those who do have access to visas try to leave the country. Maybe they fly from Port-au-Prince to somewhere in Latin America and then make their way up and try to cross at the US-Mexico border. We're seeing more of that as well, correct?
Exactly. I mean, you're seeing migration from everywhere, right? You're seeing people with money moving to the Dominican Republic, some coming to Miami. But you're right, those with visas or the ability to get to Latin America from the Dominican Republic. So they're going from Haiti to the DR, and then from the Dominican Republic, they're either going directly into Mexico, where they make their way to the northern Mexico, the southern border of the United States, or what we've seen since the 2010 earthquake, people went and they lived in Chile, they lived in Brazil, and then they take this very dangerous 7,000-mile, journey, which is through the jungles of South America, the Darien Gap, where a lot of people do die there trying to make that through Central America, through Mexico, and then to the southern border of the United States. And since last year, September, Del Rio, Texas, that everybody remembers that, where we had almost 15,000 migrants, majority of them Haitian, that were under a bridge in Texas. The US, the Biden administration actually has deported over 25,000 back to Haiti. And this includes men, women, children, babies. When they come across that land border of the United States, they're automatically subjected to what they're called Title 42. It's a public health law that former President Trump enacted as a result of the COVID pandemic. Basically, they don't even get a chance to ask for asylum. Immediately, you're basically returned back to your country of origin or the last country you left from.
Is there much of a difference between how the Trump administration dealt with the Haitians and how the Biden administration has been handling it with the Haitians?
If you talk to advocates, they will tell you no. They've been very critical of the Biden administration. And if you remember President Biden, when he was running for office, he came here to little Haiti, and he attacked President Trump's policies. He even did it on Twitter, I remember. And so, since he's come into office, he is maintaining Trump era policies as far as immigration, is concerned. As an example, we'll just talk about, one change that they will say that they have introduced. So President Trump basically terminated what they call Haitian family reunification. Both Haitians and Cubans benefited from this program, which basically allowed them to speed up the process by which their families could be reunited with them once families actually applied legally for them to migrate to the United States.
I don't really see people talking about solutions, what you can actually do to change the circumstance in Haiti. So I'll ask you, is there any reason for hope or optimism about what the future may hold?
When I ask people what's driving this desperation, what's driving this migration, first and foremost was the kidnappings, the insecurity, the gang violence. That even if I haven't been a victim, I can be a victim today. I could be a victim tomorrow. Nobody wants to live in a country where, they can become, be held for ransom. And that's the feeling that's really driving it. And then you have the hunger, the poverty, all of those issues. But so that takes us to what the solutions is. Haitians are looking for some solution, some moment to breathe with the security issue. The Haitian National Police, which was, recreated by the United States, has basically is a shadow of its former self. Haiti is subjected to a U.S. arms embargo, but yet the gangs are more heavily armed, better armed than the police officers themselves. Haitians haven't really seen any sanctions out of the United States as far as those who either may control the gangs or have relationships with the gangs. I mean, look, you had 16 Americans who were, kidnapped in Haiti, and the longest of them were held for 10 weeks. I think when that moment happened, a lot of people, when it happened in the beginning, people had hope and thought that it was going to be a game changer. And when those individuals were released 10 weeks later, after a ransom was paid, it really took the air of hope out of it, because it said, if this happened to the Americans, then what's going to happen to me?
One of the things I always come back to when I talk about Haiti with others is why they should care. Why should folks in South Florida who aren't Haitian care about what's going on in Haiti right now?
Because this country is less than 2 hours from South Florida. And when you hear people, Haitians, talk about the Somalization, in terms of Somalia, of Haiti, that should make everybody scared. What that says to you is that you have a country that literally is 2 hours, 600 miles, across the ocean from the United States, that is basically disintegrating. And it may come to a situation where the US, because of national security, is left with no choice. I mean, the Dominican Republic is next door. The president Abinader said last week during the Summit of the Americas that this community of nations, he's referring to Latin America and the Caribbean, cannot allow a country in its own hemisphere to become gangland, to be riddled by gangs. And if it's, and the question is, it's in Haiti today, but what are the chances of it exporting out? People are getting on these boats, but how do you know that they aren't gang leaders that are getting on this boat? How do you know that violence is not being exported? I mean, that's what Haiti's Caribbean neighbors are concerned with today. It's the fact that, Haiti's problem, which is now turned into an issue of national security, that it basically is going to start seeping into their, into their paradise, right? And if you're an American taxpayer, you say, "Well, I don't care." Well, the United States has been overly involved in Haiti even before its 19-year occupation of this country, and the international community has to take some responsibility for the policies that they've pushed in Haiti over the years that has helped create the situation. Haitians have their own selves to blame, but they are not in this, by themselves. They didn't get here without the help of the international community and decisions that were made.
We'll be right back.